Hi, Vivian.
Hi, Sarita.
How's it going?
Creepy.
Yeah, you've had a creepy cool day.
It has been a creepy cool day. I'm so glad I have you to talk about it with.
It's fun.
And then we have this goodness happening here.
Yeah. Welcome to the goodness.
That's such a good intro. Welcome to the goodness.
Yeah. Doesn't that sound nice?
It does, it does. It sounds so nice.
So we're cracking puzzles today,
Yeah.
right? We're at
Yes.
chapter 10.
Cracking all kinds of puzzles with our imagination station.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to start with?
I have, for some reason, the very first part is very light, and then I get to page like 188, and it looks like a rainbow hit the pages.
That's perfect because I get to page, what is it? 192 and all my sticky stop.
Really?
It's like we're tag teaming. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, to be honest, I was skimming through it, and when we got into a lot of the practices, which were towards the end, they're all awesome,
They're so
but
awesome.
I didn't tag much in them.
And that's where I tagged all the goodness. I think metaphors are metaphors come easy for me for some reason.
Yeah, you do use them quite a bit, and they're very easy to follow.
Oh, that's good to know.
I think I'm one of those metaphor mixers. I like to take from here and there and kind of blend them all together. They might not make sense to someone else, but they make sense to me.
I think we all do that, though. Don't we
Yeah.
just blend everything together? There's one part in the book where she says, let your metaphor making mind stew. And it made me think of a soup, like with all the different veggies and goodies and mixing together, tasting delicious.
Yeah. It's just like a cozy, comforting word, too. Stew.
It is. It is, it is, it is. So where do you want to start? Like my first highlight get out of town kind of moment happened on page 177 where I underlined where she talks about our ultimate purpose. So I think because I related to Alonzo, his ultimate purpose is having a long comfortable life. Clarifying will help him choose which infinite possible puzzles to crack. There's no use even taking on a challenge that has no possibility of fulfilling his highest purpose. That sort of 5 whys, like getting down to the truth of why you're doing something, was just kind of beautiful.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people connect with that. I mean, because ultimately, when someone's seeking financial security or, some kind of status, it's all to provide comfort. We always want, or our mind is always helping us feel okay. And so, like, yeah, at this level, I think, I don't know, almost everyone can relate to that at some point in their lives. Don't you agree?
I got Marmosetti on our minds always trying to create comfort. So I do agree. But I think that sometimes we mistake the mind creating comfort for our ultimate like there's a difference between when our mind creates comfort and what our ultimate purpose is.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So distinguishing between the two and doing the things that don't feel so easy and so comfortable to get to that ultimate comfort. It's kind of tricky.
Yeah, I wrote a little note to myself is like to know purpose is to not get lost in chaos. And I think that was on page 176, like right beforehand, before she kind of explained the reason for going through the steps,
Ooh,
especially in the way the world is today.
yes. That's beautiful. I didn't
And
underline that.
I
That's
really
beautiful.
like this because this is one of the areas that I have really struggled with. And is, that feeling lost and, oh, everyone's so lucky they know what their purpose is. They can follow their passion, like, and then I was always kind of like, what the hell is mine? And this is so true. Like, I don't know. I mean, sometimes you let yourself get lost in the chaos.
And that goes back to what you said earlier about everyone's purpose to feel good, to have ease,
Hmm.
to free ourselves from suffering. And what we do to get there is so different for each of us.
Sure. Yeah, and that's where the distinguishing differences are, because I think sometimes it's confusing too. Because there is that commonality, people can say, "Well, everybody wants that," and so you brush that off as not your own necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
when it is, or it could be.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Did you happen to write or fill in any of the exercises?
I did. I did it kind of twofold. Originally, when I went through the book, I did it step by step. Um, are you looking at page 179?
I am.
I knew it.
You did.
Yeah.
So what did you write? I'm curious about what you wrote, and then I'll share what I wrote.
Okay. So we're supposed to think about your ultimate purpose, the reason beyond the reason you want to solve the life puzzle you've identified. Write your ultimate purpose here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of what I etched out the first time around. So my purpose is to truly be happy in all aspects of life and help others get there to improve the greater quality of life.
Oh, I like that.
What's yours?
Mine, and again, this was the first time around before I was in the Martha Beck bubble. It is to help myself and others heal. And then it's not a really good sentence, but I'll read it exactly as I wrote it. Cultivate the giving and receiving of love to alleviate human suffering.
Oh, there are so many pretty words in that. I love cultivate. I wrote that, I remember plain as day, it's so crystal clear. When I was volunteering, I had a room to myself, which was heaven. And there was something I put on the bed, like facing me, and it was that word of cultivate. Because it's so rich.
It
I mean,
is.
it literally cultivate, and then how you sound so fancy and eloquent, matching words. Cultivate and alleviate.
Ooh, I didn't even notice that.
Ah, that's cool.
You know what comes to mind for me when you said cultivate? I think it was different for me, but when you said it, I immediately thought of soil and earth and like seeds.
Yeah. Like going deep, growing roots,
Yes.
all of that wonderfulness.
Well, and for some plants, they grow such great roots that it takes them a while to shoot up above the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I think here I am with that darn I think. What's coming to mind for me is if you aren't getting the results of what where you feel like you should be right now, they could be cultivating, they could be stewing, they could be growing roots.
Look at all these beautiful metaphors already. No.
So, what else is juicy for you?
Well, this isn't juicy so much as noteworthy, just kind of repeating it, I think. This is right in the beginning. Because when it kind of is, I like that idea of, like if you're getting kind of, I don't know, just kind of anxious or some kind of negative emotion attached with this process and this transformation. Like you said, there are things that are happening underneath and that may not be visible right now. But I also think it's kind of comforting. On page 174, it's talking about imagination and like the energy internet. And it says, the conscious part of this process requires that you deliberately set your imagination to find its way through the puzzle. In other words, you metaphorically write code on the energy internet to create a puzzle-solving program. Once you do this, your mind, and perhaps something larger, the one mind, runs its wayfinding software and spits out solutions. You set this up, but you don't actually do it. So it's that idea of making the intention, bringing your awareness to it. But once that's happened, you're already going somewhere.
You're on that train.
Mm-hmm.
You've primed the pump.
Hold on.
Yeah. Hold on is right. Oh, goodness.
So I kind of like that idea. Because I tend to be that doer, kind of like spin the hamster wheel, do, I need to do something. And that kind of helps put it back into perspective.
Well, and I think darn it, I'm going to stop sharing right there. There's this new way of doing, and it's to bring more presence, more conscious attention to your way of being. So the doing doesn't feel so tough. It doesn't feel like you're walking, through mud. The doing feels more like sliding or gliding above something.
Yeah, totally. I'm glad you said that too, because this whole book, like Finding Your Way in a Wild New World, talking about like the outer, what it looks like in reality, like just in the concept of the types of jobs out there. Traditionally people in the past may have thought, okay, you study something or you get a job and you stay in that same company for 20 plus years, you work hard, you're dedicated, put your nose to the grindstone, that brings you quote unquote success. And that kind of doing doesn't cut it anymore.
No. The cycles of change are happening so rapidly that we can't grasp or hold on to our old ways of doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're in for a wild ride. Very exciting though, because the other thing about losing that way of being, maybe that I don't know. I mean, sort of the dissolving of the manufacturing era, the assembly line, and going back to our natural states of play. Mm-hmm. It's not human nature to be on a manufacturing assembly line. That's just not how we learn and how we do as human beings. That's not our natural state. And going back to our essence sort of requires us to, even if you still have a manufacturing job or a knowledge worker job or the traditional air quotes employment, you're sort of forced to bring yourself forth in your creative endeavors. You sense this sort of lack when you don't do those things that make your heart sing. Even if you're doing them in the evening and on the weekends. Or if you're lucky, you get to do them, whenever you want to. But you get to do them. I think the thing for me is that people feel that they have to make a choice between one or the other.
Right. Yep.
And that's not the case. Like, everyone wins. No one has to sacrifice. Everyone gets, there was this, like, if you love to dance, what does it cost you to get up and dance? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What are you waiting for? Let's do a Roomba right now.
Yeah.
Dance with me, Sarita.
I wish
we'll
I had
tangle the night away.
Now. Oh, I'm going to totally be jamming to some Latin tunes. Yeah. No, I do like that because I think I'm one of those thinkers, or it's very easy, especially in our culture, to be one of those thinkers in that there's, the corporate, or not even corporate, but just kind of that traditional do mentality versus this
be.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And be doesn't mean sit on the couch and eat bonbons and sort of float your life away. It just means being.
Mm-hmm.
Being you. Like, being the real you.
Well, yeah, and there's this quote on page 181 talking about business, and it says in commerce, she quote David Murray saying, creative thinkers are metaphorical thinkers, period. So these, sometimes metaphors are that bridge between a traditional way of doing things versus that realm of creativity. It connects those two.
Ooh, I like that. And my eyes just came to these words. The secret to mastering creativity in any field is knowing how to work with metaphor without getting caught in the language. That's a really key point there. Getting caught in the language, because language can have like spikes and razors all around it. So a delicate tightrope walk, because language is so intimately married to metaphoric thought. We get lost in the words. Like, non-verbally, we know the imagery, but when the words come through, like, there's this risk to weigh them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They help us, form and provide these metaphors. And I loved how she said that language in itself is the ultimate metaphor. Because we do need it for the, we've been needing it for that connection, but it's not the essence.
Right. One of the common denominators of what I find in her practices, as she, Martha does a really good job of sort of uncovering the training techniques of wayfinders, from thousands of years ago across, tons of cultures, is that you look at something, but then you turn away. You almost like look away from it and continue to be. Like on page 188, she says, read, watch, do, call, or otherwise connect to at least 5 sources of information that have nothing to do with one another. I go back to that same line. Let your metaphor-making minds do. I like that. I like how our brain, it's not that it has to find the solution, it's the path to get to the solution. Sort of like that standard quote of the, it's the journey, not the destination.
Yeah, I have that kind of highlighted also. It's towards the end. But the ultimate purpose of every puzzle cracking escapade isn't so much having the solution as finding the solution, being part of the experience.
The other language that she uses that really connected with me is where she said deepest reveries. I didn't look that up, but she used it twice. Wandering around in nature, particularly observing something that moves continuously like water, plunges our brains into deepest reverie. So if we're stuck, she says, move. Walk, run, drive, swim, skate, ride a horse, And if you can't get out of bed, watch a fountain aflame, a goldfish in a bowl, the sway of the leaves in the breeze outside the window. Just get lost in observation and kinesthetic rhythm. This idea of movement being essential for puzzle cracking. Natural movement.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny, I feel like I'm going to go out there, but this is a stretch. But I especially think of the United States as a culture, and just even the fact that there are different campaigns for us as people to physically get up and exercise, to move a little bit. And it's like government and different organizations are calling for this because we're so sedentary. And I think we don't even realize that association. I mean, I didn't until you read that again. Just that lack, that sense of poverty in terms of fulfillment that I feel in many areas of our life and in our culture people hold within. That sense of lack or not having. And
yeah.
It's so simple. It doesn't cost anything. Just physical movement. It could be as simple as wiggling your finger, but just observing that in it.
That was so beautiful on so many different levels. What connected for me was when you said the poverty, the lack of fulfillment. Not because we are poor, but because we're blind to everything we have.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that you said the United States, because I've, had, like you, have been in other countries. And here, along the lines of what you said, like I was wearing a Fitbit, one of those things around my wrist to tell me how many steps I took, because I was being so sedentary. I wasn't moving. Like moving our thoughts. It's like, a still body of water sort of festers. There has to be natural movement.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance, I think, goes down if you have a membership gym or something. A membership to a gym. There's all these incentives that the structure gives you when you incorporate that a little bit. But why is it that we have to be incentivized?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I love that too in the book. I think it's this book, maybe I'm pulling it from some other resource, but the idea of incentives decrease our creativity.
Yeah, because they take away our natural motivation.
Right, and so if we would just pay attention to our natural curiosity and our natural desires, we're all we need, and that's always comes back to like we are our own healers. But it's just this outside cry of like, hey, we need to do something. And I feel like our society is just used to that concept of incentives, but that's not necessarily what works.
Would you agree that we are sort of turning the tide on that, and we're moving towards, I like to say turning inward. That's one of my favorite phrases. But we're turning more towards incentives, inside out motivation versus outside in.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like that play on words. I definitely do agree, and I think that's what's so hopeful about it.
It is so hopeful. Hopeful for the generations after us.
And now.
Oh, you're right, because we can have it right now.
The present.
There's no waiting for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's in this moment. It is born in every single moment. One of the things that Martha says a lot that I like is that we think that time is continuous. Because our brain puts it, sort of creates that storyline for us. But everything is recreated in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that brings me to page 193. In, the idea of recreating. She says that we as human beings have changed the face of the earth because we create solutions, but we've created those solutions on our fear and our self-centeredness. And as we reclaim the true nature of the mender's imagination, grounded in presence and shaped by compassion, that's a dance in and of itself. Can I say it one more time?
Yeah. Do it.
When those who reclaim the true nature of the mender's imagination, grounded in presence and shaped by compassion, can find their way in a wild new world. Perhaps they can even renew, rewild, and restore the world itself. And restoring the world goes back to my and your problem X on page 179. The wayfinder, the mender, the healer, we're restoring the world in our own way. Do you believe that?
I do.
The note that I made on that page is union.
Yeah, and this kind of goes along with that idea of culture and language. All of these things have developed to kind of help, I believe, kind of create structure and order and a systematic way of living, if you will. But culture helps us to certain degrees, but it also stifles or complicates our expression of our true nature. And so this idea of kind of rewilding things is also kind of that blend. I just get that kind of like flashes of the words you had mentioned earlier, like the cultivation and the stewing, kind of like the remixing and renewing of the world and its people also. If everyone is living their true purpose, I feel like ultimately, because everyone is living their true purpose, the conflict that we feel now won't exist.
I just feel like saying amen after that.
Right?
Yes. And the meaning behind amen is I believe. Yes. And the thing about that is that you living your true purpose, me living my true purpose, there's nothing but harmony in that. It won't hurt anyone to be your true self, to be closer to your nature. It won't hurt anyone.
Right, it just assists that ultimate union. Somehow in this crazy mix and mess of stuff, if everyone's going their direction and doing their thing, that is the ultimate kind of like, I think of like Connects. I don't know, have you ever played with Connects?
I'm thinking that I remember what they are, but I'm not sure.
It's kind of like Legos, but it's more with kind of like funky sticks and like circles and different things like that. And I feel like, yes, there are certain groupings of them and whatnot, and some may be associated with others. Like I'm going far with this, with like the whole idea of culture and metaphor. But if everyone is like doing their thing, each person will connect with another person and other people and all people the way they're supposed to when they're doing what is their true nature. And so that's why I think like all of a sudden I like imagine this like immense, awesome like amusement park type Connect scenario, just because I think it can be so grand, it can be so vast, but we often see, at least I do, see the like, well, that's not going to work if she's doing something that she wants. Like if you think of a two-person scenario, she wants to go to place A and he wants to go to place B, but they have to kind of compromise to make things work. That's what you would do in culture. Versus if you're living your true nature, well, okay, fine, we'll go our own ways.
Well, and not even that you're good. That brought up something very real for me, because not even that you'll go your own ways, but that you'll puzzle crack in the wayfinder way. That instead of finding the solution in culture, where it does end up you go this way, I go that way, you puzzle crack like a wayfinder, and you end up getting exactly what each of you needs, but in a different way. And I don't know if I've used this example already, but David and I have been married forever, like decades, right? And so the quote unquote sort of biggest, the most tension was around, where are we going to eat dinner? Like, what a problem to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it just became this pattern, and it was heavy, and it was just ridiculous, right? It's just ridiculous. I won't go into how ridiculous it was. But when I puzzle cracked it, I imagined it from a wayfinder's perspective, and what I realized is David's sort of essential self wants variety. So in the back of his mind, what he's not verbalizing is, I had Italian for lunch, and yesterday we had Mexican, so tonight I want Chinese. You know? Mm-hmm. So his mind, his perspective wants variety. Whereas for me, I adore all kinds of food. But what I want, what my essential self wants, is an experience. So sometimes it's live music, sometimes it's al fresco. And when we marry those two things up, there is no compromise. I get what I want, he gets what he wants. And that's really when you puzzle crack from a wayfinder's perspective. Like you said, there's no compromise. You don't have to go in two separate directions. It's almost like you don't even go in directions, you swirl.
Yes, as you said that, I totally imagined that same, it was like the cyclical rising up.
Did you?
That was awesome. Yes, it's that swirl, that kind of dance, or...
Yes, like smoke rising almost.
Yes.
Love that.
Me too, yeah.